Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Amy and Nick have just finished Game 1 and are now sideboarding. Nicole, Nick's friend, is spectating their match. Nick pulls out some cards from his main deck and puts some sideboard cards in their place, and then he starts shuffling up. At which point, Nicole says, "Hey Nick, you're playing against elementals. You want to bring those void mirrors in." At that point, Amy calls for a judge. What do? Okay, so before we start talking about the ruling, I wanted to talk a little bit about how well Void Mirror works against elementals. If you're evoking one of these elementals, then you probably didn't spend any mana at all to cast it, and yes, evoke does count as casting the card. That means that you definitely didn't pay any colored mana, and so the Void Mirror will counter it. Because it's countered, it never enters the battlefield, so you won't even get a chance to ephemerate it. Very sick value, and you won't even get the card that you exiled back because, hey, that was part of casting the spell. And the spell got countered. You don't normally get the costs back when you get countered, right? So yeah, the Void Mirror works pretty good, and Nick is definitely going to want to have it in his deck against this matchup. Okay, so now let's get back to what we would do if this happened in a real game. So fortunately for us, this is one of those cases where at least the infraction is pretty straightforward. Someone outside the game assisted one of the players should pretty much be outside assistance, right? So now we get to which player committed that infraction, and here's where things get a little fuzzier. So Nick is definitely the one that benefited from it, but based on what the problem statement said, he didn't actually do anything. On the other hand, Nicole is the one who did something that we don't want to see happen, but she might not be even in this tournament, let alone in this match. So which player is the correct person to give this infraction to? And if you're going based off the IPG, the answer is pretty straightforward, and the answer to that is Nicole. Now, I imagine this is probably going to be one of those kind of controversial questions. I remember the first time I heard it several years ago, and I still feel a little bit unsatisfied with the resolution. So I'll do as good of a job as I can explaining all the philosophy behind it. So first of all, we don't want to give a penalty to Nick here because, like I said before, Nick didn't actually do anything against the rules. And if we're going to give someone a penalty, they have to do something against the rules, right? So it's true that he benefited from someone doing something against the rules, but he didn't actually take any actions. Think about it this way. If it was possible to give somebody a penalty like this, then I imagine it would be a lot more common for people to have their friends spectate their match and give their opponents all kinds of strategic advice in the hopes that the opponents would be getting some penalties. Obviously, that would be really chaotic, and it's a good thing that we don't have to live in a world where that's how things work. So if that's the case, we need to give somebody a penalty, and Nicole is the person who actually did the action that we don't want to see happen. That's really what the penalties are for. It's to disincentivize people from doing stuff. And so that's the person who we're going to be giving a penalty to. Now, there are a couple of practical considerations related to that, such as what if Nicole isn't in the tournament anymore? Or what if she doesn't even play Magic? That is a possibility, maybe not for this specific situation, but you could definitely see how somebody who doesn't play Magic could for sure give some outside assistance. So what should we do? And back in the days when DCI numbers were a thing, the answer was, again, pretty cool. You could actually have somebody fill out a DCI card for the specific purpose of getting to enroll them into a tournament and then give them a penalty. I actually did manage to do this one time, and I feel very happy that I was able to put this one in my belt before they got rid of DCI cards. Now it's not really as clear what we're going to be doing, since you actually kind of have to be enrolled in the tournament through a different kind of software in order for you to be getting penalties. This is one of those things that I'm not sure if we have an official policy for yet, but it's definitely a good idea to work with your tournament organizer to see what the next steps should be. For example, the tournament organizer may say that the person who does this would be asked to leave the venue. It really would be their call, though, who gets to be on the tournament premises and who doesn't, so that's definitely something you would want to work with them on. As far as the penalty and the fix, well, the fix is not really satisfying. It's not really possible to do anything to undo the knowledge that Nick gained. If he wanted to be super sportsmanlike about it, then maybe he wouldn't put those void mirrors in, but since he hasn't presented his deck yet, there's no reason why he couldn't. And as for the penalty, well, the IPG specifies a match loss as the penalty for outside assistance. Again, the person who's getting this penalty would be Nicole, not Nick, so it's not really clear what a match loss would do. If Nicole was still in the tournament, then she would be getting a match loss in her next match, but if she has already dropped, then, well, there's not really much that she can be penalized for if she isn't in the tournament anymore, right? Again, the only reason Nick isn't getting a penalty here is because he did not ask for this advice. If he did, then he would also be guilty of outside assistance and would get the same penalty, a match loss. And that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again tomorrow for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.